Okay, so we're all familiar with One Piece, yeah? And by all, I mean you, cause all I know about it is that this guy is called Luffy, and Luffy is Hungarian for balloon. Oh my god, it all makes sense now. So, having previously watched Netflix's Cowboy Bebop, an anime I'm very much a fan of, I thought it would be interesting to do so with one I know pretty much nothing about. Though I would like to note that while I am unfamiliar with One Piece, I'm not new to anime as a whole. I'm sure I've watched some more obscure or outlandish ones, but at the very least, I got my bases covered with a few of the classics. I only mention this because when it comes to anime and its various permutations, there can be such an enormous difference in how people react to it, depending on whether they're familiar with some of the idiosyncrasies of the genre or not. Like, even if you've never watched a German expressionist film or a David Lynch movie, you might be taken aback by the surrealism and oddity, but can still go, yep, this is a movie, it's just weirder. But with anime, if you get hung up on why are they yelling so much, or why is his hair green, then you're gonna have a pretty tough time when we get to the really wacky stuff. So just wanted to let you know whether I like or dislike something is less because I'm not used to it in general, and more because I find the execution lacking. So with that out of the way, put on your straw hats and grab some devil fruit, cause this review is about to set sail. Get it? Cause it's about pirates? So, what is One Piece about? Well, that's probably the most straightforward thing about the show. As Ian McShane tells us, dusting off his Blackbeard voice, the greatest pirate captain Gold Roger is finally captured, and before getting stab-secuted, tells pretty much the entire world that his enormous treasure is out there, and all you need to do is find it, igniting a race to said riches and a new golden age of piracy.
The Great Pirate Era.
Great Pirate Era. And our main characters are a ragtag group who set out to find said treasure while also trying to fulfill their personal goals and not get caught by the Marines. The two words that come to mind with this show, besides one and peace, is balance and surprise. Which is funny because when you're trying to balance something, a surprise is the last thing you want, but I digress. What does balance mean in this particular case? Well, to put it simply, I found a lot of the characters, visuals, and set pieces constantly teetering on the verge of being too much, yet never crossing the line. Which isn't all that shocking considering that the source material is an energetic over-the-top shonen anime, but every time I started to feel like something was getting on my nerves or was played up too much, the show quickly pulled back just enough to keep it from going overboard. For example, our main character Luffy is a particularly tough act to pull off. He is loud, hyper, and perpetually optimistic and idealistic. This can be difficult from a writing standpoint, because if a character is always optimistic but fails constantly, he's an idiot. But if he always succeeds despite the odds, it can easily come off as just plot armor and contrived writing. And this is where balance comes in. He keeps his positive mindset throughout most of the show, but there are scenes where that positivity falters. Things don't always work out, and more cynical characters get to be right from time to time. He still gets by with sheer bullheaded dedication and optimism. He is a shonen protagonist after all, but the failures are just enough for it to temper it a bit and make his upbeat energy and mentality be more believable and endearing. The same can be said of the character of Zoro, who's named that even though he's not wearing a mask and isn't played by Antonio Banderas, or Tyrone Power, or George Hamilton. He's your typical kinda stoic, kinda aloof, kinda grumpy badass who says little but fights a lot. Would be a pretty boring character, but his dry cynicism is a good counterpoint to Luffy's optimism, and he doesn't get to win all the time, both physically and philosophically, meaning he gets his ass beat and is also proven wrong at points. These two things make him fit in well with the rest of the crew, while making him more likable than an edgy douche with too many swords who probably tells all his opponents it's nothing personal. To a degree, he's kind of an audience avatar as well, being one of the more level-headed of the group, reckless stubbornness notwithstanding, and pointing out things like how impractical it is to shout out your attacks before doing them.
All great fighters call out their finishing moves.
No, they don't.
It's less making fun of established tropes within anime, and more giving a subtle wink of acknowledgement to newcomers that, yeah, this is a bit crazy, but stick with it. It makes it a bit easier to buy into certain things when you have someone thinking and voicing the same things you are. Felt this kind of balancing act with most of the other characters as well. The psycho clown pirate Buggy, Barney, who chews just enough scenery to make it fun, Usopp, the wannabe great adventurer making up tall tales constantly, but also getting humbled / called out for it, or Kobe being an anime Morty with his constant worrying and uncertainty, but stepping up enough times to show that he at least has begun the process of growing a spine, and maybe getting a new haircut. The same applies to the style and look of the show. You have characters running around in somewhat authentic pirate gear, alongside people in modern day suits, making it look like a GQ photo shoot in the middle of a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. You have a guy with a metal jaw and an axe for a hand, henchmen dressed in cat costumes, and how this show got me to take an intense grizzled admiral with a rough Scottish accent seriously while he's wearing a goddamn dog hat will forever remain beyond me. It's like if Finn from Adventure Time got old and gruff and decided to join the Navy. But the actors play it so straight with such dedication that you pretty much just buy into it. Yeah, sure, this official law enforcement officer is wearing mouse whiskers. What of it? No one's saying anything, so it must be normal. Or are you gonna be the one to bring it up and make things awkward? I didn't think so. I'm sure some OG fans are displeased with things that were cut, feel characters were toned down too much, or changed altogether, but while some cool stuff and nuance might have been lost, as a non-fan, it didn't feel watered down to the point it loses its identity and you're just watching a kid's version of Black Sails. The main challenge of any adaptation is knowing what are the things you absolutely have to keep as faithful as possible, and what are the things that simply do not work in the chosen medium you're adapting to, no matter how well it works in the source material. And here, whatever it is that we didn't get to see, I think they found the proper balance. As for surprises, well, without spoiling things, it was a real pleasure to have my first impressions be proven wrong on a number of things. Things that made me appreciate characters more, or just got me really interested in how things will play out. Even though Luffy has the usual follow your dreams mentality that a ton of other happy-go-lucky main characters have, I was quite taken aback when he stuck to it, even if that meant that someone is probably gonna try to stop him from following his dream at some point. Was fully expecting him to try to convince Kobe not to join the Marines, but be a pirate instead. But he's just like, okay, cool, good luck, hope it works out. Dude isn't even worried about being hunted later. It really establishes that to Luffy, dreams are kinda sacred, even if it goes against his own. That's some serious talk-to-talk and walk-to-walk energy right there. Then there's the insufferable prick who is the son of a high-ranking captain, and I couldn't roll my eyes enough to express how tiring I found him. He's the usual spoiled, rude, arrogant rich boy who throws daddy's name around, can't fight worth a damn, and pretty much is the physical manifestation of nepotism. But the show actually brings him back in and slowly sets him on his own path. And while I'm sure it takes more time in the original to get there, where he ends up was also kinda cool to see and made me want to know how his story progresses. The villains also get a few lines hinting at some of the things they had to go through that might, if not justify, at least explain how they became who they are. Bucky the Clown mentions being betrayed by someone he considered a close friend. One of the cruelest characters has an entire monologue about how being a pirate doesn't actually mean you're free, because someone is always out to get you, whether it be the law, other pirates, or even your own crew. The fishmen, yes, there are fishmen in this show, deal with it, Arlong wants revenge for the oppression of his people, and while he's a ruthless extremist, there's clearly some less than ideal history there. It's like if Killmonger was written by H.P. Lovecraft. But my favorite has to be the aforementioned dog-themed Marine, Admiral Garp. Again, first impressions were not promising. Oh, it's the usual gruff, relentless pirate-chasing antagonist who's always gonna be one step behind our heroes and blah 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 blah. And while aspects of that remain true, he's much more fleshed out and likable than that, and has great chemistry with the other characters. He's gruff, but he's also compassionate and fair. He follows rules, but respects dedication and hard work, whatever your goal may be. He might be an old sea dog, but he's tough as nails. And he wears a dog hat. Man sets sail in that hat, people know he's not afraid of anything. Simply put, the shows, or mangas I'm betting, writing and characterization usually starts off simple and predictable, but throws in enough nuance and surprises to keep said characters from being complete cliches. Now, for all that praise just now, there were a few things I wasn't crazy about. The flashback method of revealing backstories broke the pace more often than not. Sure, when a character is going, so let me tell you my story, fair enough, but sometimes they came up when things were going down and I just wanted to see what happens next, not what happened before. Luffy's powers raised some questions, so he can stretch like a test version Mr. Fantastic, but is he like actually made of rubber? I'm not asking because I want to do a dissertation on the anatomy of magical pirates, Buggy alone would be a nightmare for that, but more because at one point he bounces back bullets, but then gets hurt when he gets punched or tossed around. The group's navigator Nami has a secret that she never tells a certain group of people, and even though she was asked straight up, why didn't you tell us, her answer still left me kinda confused. Like, you could have avoided a whole lot of grief if you just told them, and as far as I can tell, it wouldn't have changed a thing. Also, at one point, a character who clearly has absolutely zero hang-ups about murder, seeing as how he just committed one 2 scenes ago, forgets or refuses to finish off one of our heroes. He doesn't even tell his henchmen to do it. He's just like, oh yeah, just dump him in a hole that's not even deep enough to kill him. I'm sure it'll be fine. This wouldn't be much of a problem if he didn't just straight up kill someone, who was far less of a threat, without a second thought. It's a bit contrived and makes a pretty cunning and scary villain come off like a complete moron. Oh, and minor nitpick, but I'm guessing the battle chef Sanji is supposed to be a ladies man / womanizer? Now, maybe I've been out of the dating scene too long, and he does come on pretty strong, but it was a bit odd to see the guy get shot down time and again. Oh yeah, charming, good-looking, well-dressed guy who's ripped, knows kung fu, and is an amazing chef. Please, I have standards. I will admit I found the rejection's hilarious, but you just know some guys lost all hope when they saw that even Jet Ramsley strikes out. But for all the hiccups the show has, it never really takes away from the general momentum and sense of fun and whimsy. The characters we got to meet were all done well enough for me to be invested in them, and the ones who only showed up for a little bit, like this guy who looks like he's about to start singing When You're Evil, gave me something to look forward to. Fight scenes were generally well done, whether they were going for bombastic and over the top, or some genuinely cool looking choreography, usually involving Sanji. CG felt wonky at times, but practical effects like the makeup of the fishmen or the actual ships that got built looked great and gave weight to the world. The parallel between pirates and marines and how there's good and bad people on both sides was a nice touch, and the tone in general was well handled, switching from fun high seas adventure to Jesus, people just got killed, and not in a nice way, fairly smoothly. Funny, but I never would have guessed that out of all the failed attempts at making a live action anime, some of the Japanese ones excluded, the one that would be well received is the 1,000-episode long hyperactive anime with some of the most outlandish designs. I mean, Death Note is just a dude who kills people with a book. Darker Than Black could be a neo-noir Marvel show. You just need to combine Snatch with Bullet Train and you've got Bacano. And how David Fincher hasn't tried adapting Monster yet is right up there with the Zodiac Killer's identity as one of the big unsolved mysteries of the world. But to sum up, yeah, I liked One Piece. Quite a lot, in fact. Maybe not enough to dive into the 6 million episodes of the anime, but definitely enough to look forward to the second season, and hope that it does well too, so we can get the remaining 62 seasons and get the full story. Hey, if you like this video, then why not help me fulfill my dream of not begging for subs and likes in vain by liking and subbing? I'm sure it would make Luffy happy.